Okay, so we'll go here, but let's just check to see what this is about. Read more explanation on operator ports and decision trees. So remember that we have, these are operators, these are ports, so these are the operator ports, and this is called a decision tree. Let's see, what about operator ports? So here we have operator port information. Remember, we're talking about these things here. So there's one called mod, there's one called exa, there's another called way, there's another called tra, another called out, there's called imp, res, and result, and res. So we have a bunch of different types, and here we can get some information about them here. So for example, the res is here, result set. So distance or similarity between examples of the request set. Okay, that's not very clear. So don't count on necessarily that the documentation is going to be that easy to understand. Okay, we also have mod and tra. Let's see those. So how about tra? Training. Training data to train a model, an example set. Okay, so we haven't learned about this terminology, training data. We usually talk about two kinds of data, training data and testing data, but we haven't talked about that yet, so let's leave that alone. And how about mod? A default model from this output port. So the default model of a decision tree from this output port. Okay, so that's not that clear either. Let's see, exa and way. So exa is example set, and that's not so clear either. And way is weights. Okay. Okay, so we probably can't get too much out of this. Now let's also check the other documentation for the operator, or sorry, for the decision trees. Okay, so this is, I believe, the person who developed this software, a RapidMiner, and he's going to spend a little bit of time explaining about decision trees. So I won't go through this, but you can, or maybe he's not the, let's see, yeah. Anyway, you can go through this and learn a little bit about what he has to say about decision trees. And on this page also, there are a bunch of other videos which you can also view. Okay, let's go to the next part of the tutorial. So 5.5. Great, you have just built your first machine learning model. This was not hard. You now know how to load data. That's what we did here. Add a machine learning model to the process and execute both steps. So remember to load the data. We just found the data, and hopefully it's in this repository. It doesn't have to be. It can be somewhere else. The repository is just a set of folders on your computer that RapidMiner installs when you install RapidMiner. And the data doesn't have to be there. It can be anywhere on your computer. Maybe it can even be online somewhere. But they recommend that you push it into these folders. Apparently RapidMiner works better. RapidMiner Studio works better when it's in there. So we can put it in there. So anyway, this data was already there, and then all we had to do to load it, as they said, was to drag it onto here. And then we also decided we were going to try out a decision tree, and that was in the modeling folder, in the predictive, in the trees. So there are many machine learning algorithms that we could test out. So one of them might give certain kind of accuracy about predicting whether somebody's going to survive or not, and another one might give better accuracy or worse. So we might try out some of the other ones to see how accurate they are. Now, we didn't discuss yet how accurate this decision tree was. We just looked at its predictions, but we didn't see how accurate it was yet. But different models might have different accuracy. So we'd want to find the model that has the best accuracy or the highest accuracy, the most accurate predictions about whether someone's going to survive or not. So let's read the explanation. From our resulting decision tree, we can clearly see that survival was not coincidental at all. In fact, it tells us that as a female passenger with a small family, you were really lucky, at least if you were holding an expensive ticket. So I think we saw that result, actually. Okay, these tutorials have only shown you the tip of the iceberg of what you can do with RapidMiner. To keep learning and become a RapidMiner, and become a RapidMiner master, click the link below to start the next tutorial. So let's do that. Okay, so this is the next tutorial, and this is part 1 of that tutorial. Okay, so let's close everything up here. Okay, and let's close all of this up, just so we can. Okay, so now, getting your data into RapidMiner is often the first task you will need to complete. In this tutorial, you will learn how to import files into the central storage. So this is the central storage called the repository. We will continue to use data describing the Titanic accident, but this time it will be imported from an Excel file. So suppose your data is in an Excel file. How can you do this kind of stuff with your own data? How can you bring it into RapidMiner, so to speak? So the explanation is we will now go through the most important steps of building analytical processes, starting with data import. Then later, we will cover data preparation and so-called modeling. We also discuss some of the steps you saw so far in more detail. Okay, let's go on. By the way, it says here you can get more operators from the marketplace. So RapidMiner, probably there are people who develop features for RapidMiner and then perhaps they try to sell them. And so there's a marketplace for additional operators besides what we see here. We could check and see that. Okay, let's go next. Okay, so like we said, suppose the data isn't in this set of files, and suppose that it's an Excel file. So we'll try and get it in here. So here they provide us with some data that we're going to try and put into here, into the repository. Well, let's see what that looks like. So I get this, and I'll save it. Okay, I saved it. Okay, so I saved it into my downloads folder in my computer. Now it says to import the downloaded data into RapidMiner, click the plus import data in the repository panel and follow the steps in the wizard. So this is the repository panel, and here's a way to import some data. So let's try it out. So here it says, where is the data located? Is it in some external database, or is it on your computer? So I just downloaded it to my computer. So it's in my computer, so I'll click this, and then I'll look for it. And then once I find it, I'm going to click here and next. And then it shows me this. And it says the sheet, the name of the sheet. There's only one sheet in this full file. Let's go back and check this, by the way, see what we actually downloaded. So here's the data in Excel. This is the Excel file, and this has more data than we had before, or different data at least. So it does have the age, it has the number of siblings or spouses, it has this, it has the ticket number, passenger fare, cabin, I don't think that was in the other one, where they left from, and what lifeboat they were able to go into. Okay, so that is the Excel file that we just downloaded, and this is the view in RapidMiner as we're importing it. So the cell range is from A to L, so here's A, and I guess it goes to L, and select all, I guess, and define header row. Okay, let's just click next. So it's all selected, I guess. We can see that it's all selected. And let's click next. And now we have this screen, and we can click next. Now up here it says replace errors with missing values. So if there are some problems with the data, like some of the values are missing or something like that, we might want to select this if there are some errors. Let's see what this says. If this is checked, error values are automatically replaced by missing values. If this is not checked, the import will fail when reading an error. So we might want to check this, but I don't think it's going to matter in this particular case. But this could give you an error with your data if there's some problem with your data. Actually, if we check down here, it says no problems, so I guess we're okay. So let's click next. Now here it says when you complete the import, store the data as Titanic in your local repository. So I guess this is the local repository. This is Titanic plus data. They said call it Titanic, so let's try that, I guess. Okay, and let's try finish. Okay, and it shows us this, which I guess is a picture of our data, sort of like a spreadsheet again. And hopefully it's in our repository now. So here it says, the repository panel in the upper left corner by default is the place to store all your data and processes and results. You should always import data into the repository, especially when it comes from files like Excel or CSV. This will simplify the design of analytical processes a lot, since RapidMiner's repository stores describing metadata together with the data. So RapidMiner sort of comes up with some information about your data. They call that metadata, data about the data, and it stores that along with it. So it's good to have that, they're saying. So try and put it in the repository so that RapidMiner will develop that metadata for you. Now let's see if we can find the repository. Let's try here. Click back on Design View. And here's the repository again. And let's see, is it actually there? I guess this is our data. Okay, it's in the local repository, and this is probably the data that we just imported. Okay, let's go back to the tutorial and click Next. By the way, we could check some statistics before we do that. So we get this, and this tells us again that here the number of no's and yeses are like this. So this is different data because we didn't have this before. And let's say the average age in this case is the same, and so on. So we have the statistics. We could check some visualizations. So we get this, which we won't go into right now, but this is so we can get different kinds of visualizations here, but this is what we have by default. Okay, let's keep going to next. So they say click the Design tab to return to the Process panel. So let's get rid of this first of all. Let's get rid of this. Let's go back to here, and let's click the Design and go back to here. So now we have this in our repository. So that was the kind of task that we were trying to learn about, how to bring data into the repository. And how did we do it? We just clicked Import Data, and then we just followed the wizard. Okay, now once we have the data in here, we can do the same kind of thing we did last time. So here they tell us to drag the imported Titanic data from the repository panel from here into this panel, the process panel. Okay, so let's do that. So just drag it in. By the way, it doesn't matter again where you put it, but we're just trying to follow the picture, so we'll just put it there. Then they say when you drag data, this data, from the repository from here into the process, it transforms into a data loading operator. So this is a kind of data loading operator. Data is not actually loaded or delivered at the round output ports of each operator until you run the process. So what they're saying is you could have a very large data set and maybe RapidMiner, you don't want to load that in right at the moment. So just by dragging it onto this panel, it's actually not in RapidMiner yet. So maybe it's too large, or you don't want to. You might be afraid that the computer is going to crash or something like that. So anyway, it doesn't load it yet. And notice also that we have this little exclamation mark here, some kind of warning sign. Okay, let's go to next. Okay, this is 4 out of 6. Create a connection to view the results. So we did this kind of thing before. Connect the output port here of the Retrieve Titanic. This is Retrieve Titanic with the result port over here on the right side of the process panel. So let's try that and that. And let's read the explanation. Only data which is delivered to one of the result ports on the right can be seen after the execution of the process. If your process does not have at least one connection to a result port, you won't see any results when you execute it. Okay, let's go to next. 5 out of 6, execute the process. So press the Run button and execute the process. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, so this just shows us our data again. And once run, you automatically switch to the results view where your results are displayed. Those are the operator outputs you connected with one of the result ports on the right-hand side of the process panel. And anytime, click the Design tab to return to the process panel. So we can go back here and see the process panel, but these are the results. Okay, let's go on. Okay, congratulations, you have just imported your first data set. So we remember how did we do that? We used the repository import data wizard to do that. So you've just imported your first data set. From now on, each tutorial includes some additional questions to further improve your skills. Take a look at the challenges below. Okay, let's look at these. You can see the data in the results. Can you find out how missing values are shown? So if you look at the data here, you see there's a lot of data. But if you stare at this for a while, you will notice what? You will notice that there's some question marks here. So these question marks mean that this data is not available for this particular passenger. In other words, this is passenger number 10, I guess. We could call them passenger number 10. They're the 10th row anyway. And this was a male who was 71 and so on. And then suddenly we run into this. So this doesn't mean 0. It doesn't mean something else. It means that it's missing. It's not there. Okay? So this is an example of some missing data. And this is also an example of missing data. And these are also examples of missing data. So maybe the fact that there's missing data here means that they didn't get, there's no lifeboat number that they got into, so that may mean something bad, like that they didn't survive. But I'm not sure about that. But anyway, this is missing data. Okay, let's look at this. The Statistics tab shows summaries of the data in the columns. How many people traveled in first class, and how many people did not survive the Titanic incident? So let's go back to this and check. So how many people traveled in first class? So we can look at this, and we look for passenger class. So there's some other things here, many other variables here, but this is the one we want. And we can scroll through and look at it, but we might also click this and see what happens. Okay, so we see that. And then we get a kind of visualization. You can open visualizations, and I guess you get other visualizations. You get this one, where you can change it to something else. But let's close that. Close that by clicking on Statistics again. And let's scroll over. And we see there were 277 people that were in second class. And there were 709 people that were in third class. If we keep going over, we see that there are 323 people who were in first class. So that was the answer. By the way, it says least and most. So the least number of people were in second class, and the most number of people were in third class. Okay, next, how many didn't survive? You could check that and play around with some of the charts if you like. Can you see some interesting patterns? So you can look for that as well. Now, if we go back to the data again here, we can also see how many rows don't have any problems, don't have any missing data. Because often what we'll do in data science is we sort of have two choices. Either, because many of the algorithms, like we talked about the decision tree, and that seemed to not complain too much, even though we had some missing data, but some algorithms might complain. And so you have to decide what to do. You have to clean up the data before you put it into the algorithm. So you have to decide what you should do about the fact that you have missing values. So one approach is just to delete any row that has a missing value. That's kind of a very simple approach. The only problem with that is if you have many rows that have maybe a missing value in them, you might end up deleting a lot of your data, and that could mean that you're going to get less accurate results for various reasons in terms of your predictions. And another thing that you could do is what they call imputation, which basically means to try and guess what the value should be. Now that sounds like a strange thing to do. How can you guess what the value should be? Well, the idea is that over here, let's see, where's a missing value? Here, cabin number. So this is missing. So what you can do is, okay, this was a person who didn't survive, who was in first class, who was a male, who was kind of older, and so on. So what you could do is you could look for other people that were sort of similar to this person. That is, maybe they didn't survive, they were in first class, they were older, they were male, yes or no. You could kind of find it, this is a pretty big data set, so you're likely to find a lot of other people that have those characteristics. So what you can do is look in and say, well, what cabin were most of them in? And then just assign this to that cabin. So that's a way to guess. It's called imputation. So anyway, if we want to see how many missing values we have, so missing attributes, we can select this here. And here we can see that actually most of the data has, most of the data has something missing. And here, no missing attributes, only 180 cases have no missing attributes. So that's not so great. Maybe that's not unusual, but anyway, it's not so great. because we had 1,300 rows of data, but now if we just ignore the ones that any of them that have missing values, we only end up with 180. That's a much smaller data set. So, our predictions are not going to be nearly as good as if we actually had 1,300 rows of good data. So anyway, you can see that here. You can see how many have missing, how many don't have any missing, and so on. Okay, let's go on to the next tutorial.